I was on a call with my coworker Molly, and we decided to make a little prototype of what the Memberstack site could look like. So I spent the rest of the day prompting Claude Code and trying to build a little prototype, and it did so perfectly. I was thinking this must be a fluke. There's no way it's this easy. There's no way this is going to work. So I kept going collection by collection, page by page, and it just didn't stop. Since Memberstack's founding in 2018, our marketing site has always lived in Webflow. To put it simply, our team loves Webflow. Our product was actually originally built to be a Webflow-specific membership add-on, and to this day, our primary target market is indeed Webflow developers. We love Webflow because we can develop anything that we can design, so we have total flexibility. Time to launch is way faster than with a traditionally coded website. Time is money, we all know that. And finally, just because the Webflow community is awesome. So Webflow has always been the obvious choice for where we're going to have our marketing site. And if you asked me literally 2-3 months ago, I could never have seen a future in which our marketing site wouldn't be in Webflow. But today, if you go to memberstack.com, what you're going to see is not a Webflow site. In fact, it is a React and Next.js site using Sanity as its CMS, fully built by Claude Code. So how did this happen? Why did we decide to vibe code our entire marketing site? Was it a terrible idea? Did anything break? And finally, would I recommend that you do the same thing? So in this video, I'm going to give you an unfiltered look at why we decided to do this in the first place, how the migration went, did anything break now that we've been live for a couple weeks, and finally, my recommendations to you and anyone watching this who are thinking about making the same decision. So let's get into it. First things first with a little bit of backstory. Like I said, our site has been in Webflow for the past 8 years. And that means it's been worked on by a lot of different people at a lot of different points throughout their career. And straight up, it was a mess. There were CMS collections we didn't use. The CMS collections that we did use had redundant data in them. There were probably over 6 different class naming systems present on that one website. It was not very fun to work on, let me tell you. About a year ago, I did a big overhaul on that Webflow site, and let me tell you, it was just a pain. Now, I want to be clear, this is not Webflow's fault. Webflow gives you a lot of flexibility. Flexibility to build a good site, flexibility to build a bad site, flexibility to build a clean site, and flexibility to build a messy site, which is exactly what we did. Not that we wanted to, but when you have that many people working on a site over that amount of time, things are just bound to get messy, and eventually you're going to need to kind of rebuild the whole thing. Speaking of rebuilding the whole thing, fast forward to November 2025, just 2 months ago. We were taking a look at our marketing site and we came to the realization that we're going to need to make a lot of big updates to it. And I was not excited to work on that Webflow site again. But I knew that we really needed to make updates to our site. So I was on a call with my coworker Molly, and we decided to make a little prototype of what the Memberstack site could look like. So we're super used to using Claude Code, and so we actually just popped open Claude Code to make like a little prototype to show the rest of the team and to get buy-in on updating our site. But the plan was always to rebuild it in Webflow. So I spent the rest of the day prompting Claude Code and trying to build a little prototype for our homepage. And by 8 o'clock that evening, I was looking at something beyond my wildest dreams, let me tell you. I did not just have a proof of concept. I had a beautiful, responsive, performant page that was, by all accounts, way better than what we had in Webflow. And all of that took me less than 1 day to build. I'm talking design, copywriting, and development. So I redid the Memberstack homepage a year ago in Webflow, and all of that stuff took me over a week to build. And now I just blew it out of the water with something I vibe coded in a day. I'm really not trying to sensationalize here. I genuinely mean it. That first draft of the homepage looked so much better than our existing homepage, and everyone on our team agreed. Genuinely less than a year ago. If you told me you vibe coded the marketing site for a successful SaaS, I would have called you insane. But at this point in time, we're just looking at this and wondering, what good reason is there for us to go ahead and rebuild this in Webflow? The thing is, I've spent the past year vibe coding production projects, and as much as people want to talk about vibe coding in a bad light, nothing broke. My sites were ranking on Google. What difference is there between the Memberstack site and any of the other projects that I work on? So I called up Molly and we had a conversation basically with the goal of trying to figure out why shouldn't we do this. And by the end of that conversation, we had nothing. Again, not only did we have a better product at the end of the day, it took us significantly less time than it would have to do the same thing in Webflow. You cannot ignore that as a business. You can't willingly take more time to do things just because that's the way that you've always done it. If your brain works like that, why are you using Webflow? Why don't you just write your own HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? But still, even after this conversation, the facts are the facts. We have a marketing site that's been in Webflow for over 8 years, and it is friggin' complicated. There's a lot going on this site. And so I figured I'm just going to keep on building this site, and soon enough, something is going to happen that's going to show me, Julian, this is why this is a horrible idea, and this is why you should keep your site in Webflow. I was like 80% sure that that was going to happen, and I would have killed the project before it even started. So I started migrating everything, page by page. The static pages were easy, and I was pretty impressed, but I was thinking where this is all going to unravel is at the CMS. So after some quick research, and by research I mean talking to Claude, I found the most highly recommended CMS for React and Next.js, and it is called Sanity. So I told Claude Code to install Sanity. It did. Then I hooked up the Sanity MCP. Then I sent a CSV of one of our Webflow collections and I told it to migrate it, and it did so perfectly. I was thinking this must be a fluke. There's no way it's this easy. There's no way this is going to work. So I kept going collection by collection, page by page, and it just didn't stop. Two weeks later, and I was done. The whole site was built. Every static page, every CMS collection, and all of our technical SEO work had been migrated over from Webflow to a React Next.js site using Sanity as a CMS in 2 weeks. Let me tell you right now, I used to be an agency owner, and if someone came to us with our site from before, and it was in, let's say, WordPress, and they wanted us to bring it over to Webflow, that would have been a $50,000 project at the bare minimum, and I did it virtually on my own in 2 weeks. So anyways, we had this finished site and we started to run some tests on it using Lighthouse and Screaming Frog. The goal was to figure out is, yeah, okay, the site looks great, but what if Google picks it up and just says this thing sucks? Not only was our site as performant and as SEO optimized as our Webflow site, it was significantly better. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some issues, and we were able to very quickly iron those out with Claude Code. So we had a site that looked great, worked great, is optimized for search engines, and is fast. Now, what about the collaboration process? So we started adding some of our team members to the project, ranging from our less technical content team all the way to our founding engineer. And everyone was making updates to this site with ease. No training needed. Tell Claude what you want, get it done. So this is all fun and games. We're just working on a staging site. It's going really well. We're all having a really great time. But then the end of December started to roll around, and the time for migration was coming up quickly. Despite everything going smooth throughout this entire project, let me tell you, I was worried. After all, this marketing site is directly responsible for paying the salaries of myself and the rest of my team. A mistake isn't just a little mistake. A mistake here could cost us dearly. However, we did a lot of checking, a lot of testing, a lot of due diligence, and nothing came up signaling that this is a bad idea. So, since we couldn't come up with a logical reason not to do this, we decided to move forward. At the end of the day, we figured, hey, if something does happen that catastrophically ruins our site, we could just switch back the DNS records from this new vibe-coded site back to our Webflow site with limited issue. So, that fateful day came, and we switched the DNS settings, and we watched as our site, for the first time in history, went from Webflow to something else. We watched in fear, waiting for something to break, waiting for something bad to happen to let us know that this was a horrible idea and we never should have done this. But that just never happened. Nothing broke. Nothing went wrong. And at this point, 2 weeks have passed. We're pushing updates to our site faster than ever before. Our organic search looks good. Our bounce rate, our conversion rate look good. And so by all measurable metrics, this has been a success. Nothing broke. Our site has officially been migrated. Now, don't get me wrong, we still all love Webflow here at Memberstack. But you just can't ignore the facts. We chose Webflow because of total flexibility and faster speed to launch, and we just found something that does that for us even better. Not only that, but it allows our entire team to get involved, ranging from, like I said, our non-technical content team all the way to our founding engineer and everywhere in between. So for us here at Memberstack, it was a success. And now I have 2 more things that I want to share with you. First of all, would I recommend that you do the same thing? And second of all, I'm going to share some tips with you that if you do decide to do this, are going to allow you to do it much more successfully. First things first, would I recommend this to you? Yes. No. Maybe? Here's the deal. Our team has basically been using Claude Code more than anything else for roughly the past year. Our engineers work with it to build new features. I work with it to show you guys how you can vibe code apps. And even our content team has been using Claude Code in order to build prototypes. To put it simply, Claude Code is something that we're all comfortable with as a team. So if you and your team are in a similar position and you're used to using Claude Code, but you're just scared of migrating your marketing site, let me tell you, hell yes, I do recommend you do it. I think it's a phenomenal idea. Not only is our site now much better and much easier to update, but it is absurdly fun. If you're used to Claude Code, then you know it is fun. It's like playing a video game almost. And if for no reason other than that, the fun of working with Claude Code allows us as a team to just ship more to our marketing site. And that alone makes it all worth it to me. However, if you're a Webflow agency and your entire team lives, eats, and sleeps Webflow, it's gonna feel weird moving from dragging to prompting. And what I was just talking about with how fun Claude Code is, you could actually have the opposite effect and end up with a marketing site that your team is more scared of pushing updates to and just has less fun working on. So if that's the case, I probably would not recommend it. However, if this does sound like you, I would highly recommend experimenting with Claude Code and trying it out. This is a totally new way of working, and I don't think it's a good idea to just sit on the sidelines and try nothing. Whether or not it's the right choice for you and your team is totally up to you. You know yourself better than I know you. That being said, it's not good to just ignore significant trends in tech. That is how you're going to end up obsolete in 2026. So to recap, I would recommend this to you if your team is similar to ours and if you're going to have a lot of fun building things in Claude Code. There is zero technical reason not to do this. But if that's not the case, I wouldn't recommend making the switch just yet. Now, finally, for the last part of this story, I want to give you some tips that helped me build the perfect site for our company from a design, branding, and a technical point of view. First things first, design. Simply put, at least as of this recording in January 2026, use Claude Opus 4.5 with the front-end design skill in Claude Code. Guys, I've used virtually everything for vibe coding, and this just blows everything I've ever used out of the water. I would not recommend using another tool in another model. Perhaps I'm just a Claude fanboy, but I wouldn't even consider it. Anyone who's working on our marketing site should only be using Claude Opus 4.5, or if a new model comes out is better. Anyways, from a technical point of view, that is what's going to give you the best design. However, even using this, Claude can still give you designs that just lack soul and, more importantly, don't feel on brand for your company. So here's how you get around that. The way that I started this project was actually by having a long conversation with Claude, sending a whole bunch of visual references, text references, and more, with the end goal of creating a markdown file that clearly outlined our brand, our product, our messaging, our visual language, and everything, so that the LLM in very clear language can understand who it's designing for, what it's designing, and why it's designing it. And then I had it reference that markdown file for everything. In almost every prompt, I mentioned the markdown file and told it to read the markdown file first. That is the real secret to how we ended up with a marketing site that looks beautiful and on brand instead of just looking like AI slop. I spent hours with Claude to create this document, and a lot of people wouldn't do this, but it laid the groundwork for everything that I did after, and it was such a great use of time. So always start your projects like that. Now, another thing that I want to mention is that after you have a few perfect pages, so in my example, it was like the home page, the pricing page, the blog page, and the features page, Claude is absurdly good at leaning off of those existing designs to build new ones. And after that, I didn't even find myself instructing Claude on how to design. I just told it to reference the rest of my site, and it almost always came up with beautiful pages really quickly. And the final tip that I have for you on the design side of things is when you want to design for something, let's say a homepage hero, don't just tell Claude to build you a homepage hero. Instead, explain what you want, why you want it, and then ask it to come up with a few variations. I usually give it 3. Too little is not going to give you enough variety, and too many, you're just going to clog up the context window. So usually I'd have Claude create 3 different variants. I'd tell it to make them all unique and to label them. So what I'd end up with is, let's say, 3 separate hero sections, all of which looked very different and all of which had examples of stuff that I liked in them. So with this visual reference, I can then just clearly tell Claude, use the copy from example A, use the colors from example B, and use the structure of example C. That has really helped me get beautiful designs out of Claude Code. Now, from a technical standpoint, in order to end up with a good site, my most important advice to you is know the tools that you are using and why you are using them. So a topic that gets often debated is whether you should clearly outline things to AI, or if you should just kind of let it do what it wants to do. Straight up, there is no clear or correct answer to this. It all depends. But I like to think about it this way. Consider Claude like your expert advisor. Respect its opinion. It knows what it's talking about, and it knows a lot of things that you don't know. But at the same time, it doesn't know your business as well as you know your business. For example, we made the choice to use Sanity as our CMS to power our new marketing site. And Claude absolutely helped me discover Sanity, like I said. But I didn't just listen to it blindly. After I heard about Sanity, I did my own research. I looked into it. I looked into some examples of other sites that are using it. I looked into its limitations, its performance. And finally, once all of that looked good to me, I tried it out myself. All of this happened before I even considered asking Claude to implement it on the new site. The point here is you absolutely should listen to Claude. However, don't just blindly trust it, and make sure you're aware of everything it's doing. That way, if something does break, you will have a pretty clear idea of why it broke and how it broke. And finally, I have 3 practical tips for you if you do decide to make a similar decision that will lead to you going through a very smooth migration process. Tip number 1 is use the Sanity MCP. Guys, this was insane, and it made my entire workflow so much easier. I was able to export CSVs from Webflow, which had a whole bunch of old and redundant data. Claude Code was able to go through these, figure out what was redundant and what needs to be kept, and then it was able to use the Sanity MCP to directly port all of this stuff over into Sanity. This was probably the most shocking part of the entire migration, how easy that was. Guys, I have done dozens of CMS migrations. It is such a pain to bring over all of that information. Yeah, if you have 40 blog posts, who cares, right? But we have hundreds of blog posts, hundreds of templates, hundreds of components, and all of these collections have complicated data structures that need to be respected on the new site. And the Sanity MCP with Claude Code put all of this difficult work on autopilot. Don't get me wrong, you really need to watch what an MCP is doing because it literally has the power to go and delete your whole collections. So keep a close eye on it, but that Sanity CMS is going to save you so much time with the MCP. Now, my second tip for you, especially from an SEO standpoint, is do a one-to-one migration. Now, I know you're migrating your site and you're probably going to want to change a whole bunch of things about it. I know that I did and I still do. But here's the thing. No matter what you do, when you're migrating CMSs, Google is going to see that and they're going to go, uh-oh, these people made a big change. And you are almost guaranteed to take a temporary hit to your organic traffic, usually in the range of about 20 to 30%. Don't worry, this should recover after a few weeks, once Google understands that it's the same site and everything is okay. And that is why I recommend, especially for things like H1s, sitemaps, meta information, redirects, all of that fun stuff, make it the exact same as it was on your existing site, because then Google is much easier going to be able to take a look and go, okay, this is the same site, it behaves in the same way. There's a lot of things we still want to change on our site, but we didn't want to shock Google that much. So we migrated a lot of things over, even old things that we don't like and we do plan on changing. We made sure that they were the same throughout the migration. Once our organic traffic recovers from the migration itself, then we can start to change these things one by one in order not to spook Google too much. Just to be clear, this does not only apply to the type of migration that we did, this is true for any CMS migration. And if you've already been doing CMS migrations, perhaps as an agency owner, you're probably already very familiar with this. So my third and final tip for you is test everything significantly. Like I just said, this is true with any CMS migration. However, especially when you're using AI, there are certain things that are never going to have a human eye look over them even once while they're being built, especially on a very large site. I know, for example, we have over 800 Webflow components that people can copy on our site. I simply do not have the desire or the time to go through every single component and test it out and make sure that it works. And fixing bugs with Claude Code is ridiculously easy, but finding them cannot always be done just with Claude Code. Sometimes you, other people on your team, your friends, your mother, your dog, I don't know, need to just give your site a clear look and try to find if anything is strange, broken, not as it's supposed to be. Even when we thought our site was done, there were dozens and dozens and dozens of issues that we picked up on and fixed before we pushed it live. And don't get me wrong, even once we pushed it live, there were still a couple of issues that we had to fix post-launch. Again, from my experience, this is the case with any CMS migration, not just this one. But the testing aspect becomes even more important when you have a site that was built by AI. So do not forego that step. Give it a good check over, run all of the tests that you possibly can. That way, you're not going to end up with a difficult moment post-launch where you broke something. So now that you've heard this story and now that you've seen this video, please go to memberstack.com at the link in the description, take a look at the site, and let me know if you think that it looks vibe coded or not. As always, have a great day. I'll see you in the next one, and let us know in the comments what you thought of this video.